And before anybody could say a word, in he went. He swum to it, and as he was pushing it to the raft, the men spread to one side. But the old man got it aboard and busted in the head, and there was a baby in it. Yes, sir, a stark naked baby. It was Dick Albright's baby. He owned up and said so. Yes, he says, a-leaning over it. Yes, it's my own lamented darling, my poor lost Charles William Albright, deceased, says he. Where he could curl his tongue around the bulliest words in the language when he wanted to, and lay them before you without a gent started anywheres. Yes, he said he used to live up at the head of this bend, and one night he choked his child, which was crying, not intending to kill it, which was probably alive, and then he was scared and buried it in the barrel before his wife got home, and off he went and struck the northern trail and went to rafting. And this was the third year that the barrel'd been chasing him. He said the bad luck always begun light and lasted till 4 men was killed, and then the barrel didn't come any more after that. He said if the men would stand it one more night and was going on like that, but the men had got enough, they started to jump out a boat and take him ashore and lynch him. But he grabbed the little child all of a sudden and jumped overboard with it hugged to his breast and shedding tears, and we never see him again in this life, poor old suffering soul. Nor Charles William neither. Who was shedding tears, says Bob. Was it Albright or the baby? Why, Albright, of course. Didn't I tell you the baby was dead? Been dead 3 years. How could it cry? Well, never mind how it could cry. How could it keep all that time, says Davy. You answer me that. I don't know how it done it, says Ed. It done it, though. That's all I know about it. Say, what did they do with the barrel, says the Child of Calamity. Why, they hove it overboard and it sunk like a chunk of lead. Edward, did the child look like it was choked, says he. Did it have its hair parted, says another. What was the brand on that barrel, Eddie, says a fellow they called Bill. Have you got the papers on them statistics, Edmund, says Jimmy. Say, Edwin, was you one of the men that was killed by the lightning, says Davy. Him? Oh, no, he was both of them, says Bob. Then they all ha-ha'd and say, Edward, don't you reckon you'd better take a pill? You look bad. Don't you feel pale, says the Child of Calamity. Oh, come now, Eddie, says Jimmy. Show up. You must kept part of that barrel to prove the thing by. Show us the bunghole, do, and we'll all believe you. Say, boys, says Bill, let's divide it up. There's 13 of us. I can swallow a 13th of the yarn if you can worry down the rest. Ed got up mad and said that they would all go someplace, which he ripped out pretty savage, and then walked off aft, cussing to himself, and they yelling and jeering at him and roaring and laughing like so you could hear them a mile. Boys, we'll split a watermelon on that, says the Child of Calamity. And he come running around in the dark amongst the shingle bundles where I was and put his hand on me. I was warm and soft and naked, and he says, ouch, and jumped back. Fetch a lantern or a chunk of fire, boys. There's a snake here as big as a cow. So they run there with a lantern and crowded up and looked in on me. Come out of there, you beggar, says one. Who are you, says another. What are you after? Speak up prompt or overboard you go. Snake him out, boys. Snatch him out by the heels. I began to beg and crept out amongst them trembling. They looked me over wondering, and the Child of Calamity says, a cussed thief. Lend a hand and let's heave him overboard. No, says Big Bob. Let's get out the paint pot and paint him all over sky blue, all over from head to heel, and then heave him over. Good, that's it. Go for the paint, Jimmy. When the paint come and Bob took the brush and was going to begin, and others laughing and rubbing their hands, I begun to cry, and that sort of worked on Davy, and he says, Fast there, he's nothing but a cub. I'll paint the man that touches him. So I looked around on them, and some of them grumbled and growled, and Bob put down the paint, and the others didn't take it up. Come here to the fire and let's see what you're up to, says Davy. Now sit down there and give an account of yourself. How long you been aboard here? Not over quarter of a minute, sir, says I. How did you get dry so quick? I don't know, sir. I'm always that way mostly. Oh, you are you? What's your name? I weren't going to tell him my name. I didn't know what to say, so I just says, Charles William Albright, sir. Then they roared, the whole crowd, and I was mighty glad I said that, because maybe laughing would get them in better humor. When they got done laughing, Davy says, It won't hardly do, Charles William. You couldn't have growed this much in 5 year, and you was a baby when you come out of the barrel, you know, and dead at that. Come now, tell a straight story, and nobody'll hurt you if you ain't up to anything wrong. What is your name? Alec Hopkins, sir. Alec James Hopkins. Well, Alec, where do you come from here? From a trading scow. She lays up the bend yonder. I was born on her. Papa's traded up and down here all his life. And he told me to swim off here because when we went by, he said he'd like to get some of you to speak to Mr. Jonas Turner in Cairo and tell him, Oh, come. Yes, sir, it's all as true as the world. Pap, he says, Oh, your grandmother. And they all laughed, and I tried to talk again, but they broke in on me and stopped me. Now looky here, says Davy, you're scared, and so you talk wild. Honest, now, do you live in a scow, or is it a lie? Yes, sir, in a trading scow. She lays up at the head of the bend. But I weren't born in her. It's our first trip. Now you're talking. What did you come here for? To steal? No, sir, I didn't. It was only to get a ride on the raft. All boys does that. Well, I know that, but what did you hide for? Sometimes they drive the boys off. So they do. They might steal. Looky here. If we let you loose this time, will you try to keep out of these kind of scrapes hereafter? 'Deed I will, boss. You try me. All right, then. You ain't but a little ways from shore. Overboard with you. And don't make a fool of yourself another time this way. Blast it. Boy, some rascal's gonna rawhide you till you're black and blue. I didn't wait to kiss goodbye, but went overboard and broke for shore. When Jim come along by and by, the big raft was away out of sight around the point. I swum out and got aboard and was mighty glad to see home again. Well, the boy didn't get the information he was after, but his adventures furnished the kind of glimpse of the departed raftsmen and keelboatmen which I desired to offer in this place. I now come to a phase of the Mississippi River life of the flush times of steamboating, which seems to me to warrant full examination, the marvelous science of piloting as displayed there. I believe there's been nothing like it elsewhere in the world.